Everyone prays to the monad. Almost no one talks to it. Mary Magdalene did. Sit with that for a second, because there's a difference between praying and talking, and that difference is the entire reason your prayers have felt like they're going nowhere. You've done it. I know you have. You've sat in the dark and asked the universe a question. You've whispered it to your higher self, to source, to whatever name you use for the thing behind everything. And then you waited, and nothing came back. Not a voice, not a sign, not even a feeling. Just silence, thick enough to make you wonder if you're talking to empty air. Here's the part nobody tells you. That silence isn't proof there's nothing on the other end. It's proof you were never taught how to actually open the line. Most of us were handed a script for prayer when we were children, and nobody ever updated it. Ask, hope, wait, repeat. Nobody ever sat us down and explained that the line itself has to be opened first, the way you'd tune an old radio before expecting a station to come through clean. So we kept transmitting into static and calling it faith. Mary Magdalene knew how to actually open that line. Esoteric tradition remembers her as someone who didn't just believe in the monad, the way most people believe in something far away and untouchable. She knew how to reach it. She knew how to ask in a way that actually landed. And what's wild is that her method got buried, scattered into fragments, while the version of her most people know got flattened into something much smaller than what she actually was. Today I'm giving you 5 ways she used to talk to the monad and get an answer back. Real ones. Each one builds on the last, so by the end you're not just collecting tips, you're holding a complete method. Stay until the 5th one. That's the one that changes how you ask for everything for the rest of your life. You probably know one version of Mary Magdalene. Most people do. And I'll be honest with you, that version is so small compared to what esoteric tradition actually holds about her. In hidden teaching, passed in fragments, whispered down through circles that didn't trust the mainstream story, Mary Magdalene isn't remembered as a passive figure standing at the edge of someone else's story. She's remembered as an initiate, someone who walked a path of direct inner knowing, someone who didn't need permission to reach the source, because she'd already learned how. I find that detail important, and I'll tell you why. In most spiritual traditions, direct contact with the divine gets handed to a chosen few. Priests, prophets, people with official titles, robes, institutions backing them up. But esoteric tradition tells a different story about her. It holds her as someone who reached that contact herself, through inner work, through a kind of knowing that didn't ask anyone's permission first. She didn't wait to be ordained into the conversation. She simply learned how to have it. That's rare, and it's the reason I think her name carries weight in circles that study the hidden path. She represents proof that the connection was never meant to be locked behind a title. It was meant to be earned through depth, through the kind of patient inner work most of us avoid, because it doesn't come with a certificate at the end. Here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is going to come up again and again as we go through her 5 ways. Esoteric tradition holds that she understood something most people never grasp, that there are forces standing between the soul and the source. Ancient teachers gave these forces a name. Archons. Don't picture monsters. That's not what we're talking about here. Think of Archons more like static, distortion patterns, layers of fear, noise, and false authority that sit between you and clear contact with the monad. They don't have to be real entities crouched in some other dimension for the concept to matter. What matters is the pattern they describe, something every one of us has felt pressing in on a quiet moment, trying to talk us out of it before it even begins. Esoteric tradition remembers Mary Magdalene as someone who could see through that static, someone who knew the noise wasn't the real wall. It just felt like one. That's why her teaching matters so much right now, because most of us are still stuck at that wall, thinking it's the end of the road, when really, it was never the actual barrier. It was just interference. And she knew how to move past it, one quiet, deliberate practice at a time. Keep that idea close. Archons. Interference. Because every single way I'm about to give you is built on getting past that static, one layer at a time. You felt it before, even if you didn't have a word for it. That sense of something vast sitting behind everything. Behind your thoughts, behind the noise of your day, behind the universe itself. A point so simple it's almost impossible to describe. That's the monad. The monad is the source point. The one before division. Before there was you and me, before there was light and dark, before there was anything split into pieces, there was the monad. Everything that exists branches out from it, like every leaf on a tree traces back to one root, every wave traces back to one ocean it never actually left. Pythagoras, the Greek mathematician mystic who first gave the concept its name, taught that the monad wasn't a being sitting somewhere waiting for you to find it. It was a state, a point of pure unity, underneath all the separation we experience every day. He saw it less as a destination and more as a baseline, the note everything else is tuned against, even when we've forgotten how to hear it. And here's my honest opinion. I think most people get this wrong from the start. They picture the monad like a person, a face, a figure they have to convince or impress, the way you might rehearse what to say before walking into an interview. That mistake alone blocks more connection than anything else I'm about to tell you. The monad isn't a person you petition. It's a frequency you align with. So if it's a frequency, why does it feel so hard to reach? This is where the Archons come back in. Esoteric tradition describes them as forces that don't create, they only distort. They mimic. They sit in the space between you and the source, and they specialize in making noise feel like truth. Fear feels urgent, so the archonic noise wraps itself in fear. Ego wants control, so the archonic noise wraps itself in demand. Doubt wants proof, so the archonic noise wraps itself in skepticism that never actually settles, that always needs one more sign before it's willing to believe the last one was real. I want to be clear here, because this matters. We're not talking about literal demons hiding in the shadows. Think of Archons as the psychological static inside you, the looping thoughts, the anxious chatter, the old fear patterns that hijack your attention right when you try to go quiet. That static is loud enough that it convinces you there's no signal at all. But the signal was always there. The static was just louder, the same way you can't hear a quiet voice in a crowded room until the room finally settles down. This is exactly what Mary Magdalene is remembered for understanding. She knew the static wasn't the wall. It only sounded like one. So here's the real question. If most people are stuck fighting static, mistaking it for silence, how did she get past it? That's exactly what the 5 ways are going to show you. And the first one starts before you even open your mouth to ask anything at all. You already know the urge. The second something feels uncertain, you want to ask. Right now, out loud or in your head, you want to throw the question out and get the answer immediately. I get it. I've done it 2 more times than I can count, usually at 2 in the morning with my mind already racing toward worst-case scenarios. But this is exactly where most people lose the connection before it even starts. The first way Mary Magdalene used was silence before asking. Not silence as a polite pause. Silence as preparation. Before she ever spoke to the monad, she emptied first. Here's why that matters so much. Remember the archonic static we just talked about? That static thrives in a busy mind. It hides inside your rushed, anxious asking. When you fire off a question while your mind is loud, you're not sending a clear signal. You're sending noise wrapped around a question, and noise is exactly what archonic interference feeds on. It's like trying to whisper something important across a room full of people shouting. The words might be right, but nothing gets through clean. So the practice is simple, even if it isn't easy. Before you ask anything, sit. Let your mind empty out, the way water settles after you stop stirring it. Don't ask yet. Just become quiet enough that your own noise stops being the loudest thing in the room. Give it a few minutes. Give it longer if you need to. There's no timer on this. I'll be honest with you. This is the step almost everyone skips. We're so used to instant answers from search engines and apps that we expect the same speed from the monad. But the monad doesn't respond to speed. It responds to clarity. And clarity only shows up after the noise settles. You can't rush a process that was never built around urgency in the first place. Think of it like trying to see your reflection in water. If the water's being splashed around, you see nothing but chaos. But the moment it goes still, your reflection appears clean and exact. Your mind works the same way. The monad isn't hiding from you. Your own static was just covering the surface, the way wind covers a lake until the air finally goes calm. This is the foundation everything else builds on. Because once your mind is quiet enough to lower the static, you're ready for the second way, and this one moves the asking out of your head completely. Here's something that might surprise you. Your mind isn't actually the part of you that talks to the monad. Your body is. I know that sounds strange at first. We're taught that thinking is where all the real spiritual work happens. Think the right thoughts, believe the right beliefs, and the connection will follow. But esoteric tradition holds something different, and it's the second way Mary Magdalene is remembered for using. She didn't ask with sentences. She asked with her whole body. Think about it like this. Your mind is full of words, and words are exactly where archonic static loves to live. Every anxious thought, every looping worry, every doubt dressed up as logic, it all happens in language. But your body doesn't argue. Your body doesn't loop. Your body simply feels, without needing to justify the feeling first. So the second way is this. Once you've gone quiet, instead of forming the question into a sentence, let it sit in your chest. Let it become a felt sense, a kind of pressure or warmth or pull, rather than a string of words. Esoteric tradition describes the body as a resonance chamber, something built to vibrate in tune with the source if you let it, rather than just narrate questions at it the way you'd type a message into a search bar. I really believe this is one of the most overlooked parts of any spiritual practice. We talk so much about mindset, but so little about the body as a tool for actual contact. Your body was built to hold frequency, not just carry you from place to place, run errands, and wait for your mind to finish thinking. Try this the next time you're asking for guidance. Don't think your question. Feel it. Let it sit low in your chest, like a held breath you're not in a hurry to release. Notice what tightens. Notice what softens. Notice if there's warmth or weight, or a kind of pull towards something you can't quite name yet. That's not random. That's your body responding before your mind has caught up and tried to explain it away. This is why the second way matters so much, and why it has to come after the first. You can't feel a question clearly if your mind is still loud. But once it's quiet, your body becomes the real instrument, and that opens the door to something even harder. Because once you stop hiding behind thoughts, you have to face the question honestly. And that's exactly what the third way demands. I want you to think back to the last time you asked the universe for something. Be honest with yourself for a second. Was the question clean? Or was it wrapped in fear? Wrapped in a demand? Wrapped in a story about why you deserve the answer right now? Why you've waited long enough? Why this time should be different? Most of us ask dressed-up questions. We don't even realize we're doing it. The third way Mary Magdalene is remembered for is this. The question has to be naked. No disguise. No hidden agenda buried underneath it. Here's why this one hits harder than the first two. Esoteric tradition holds that archonic static doesn't just live in mental noise. It feeds on fear-wrapped requests and ego-wrapped demands. When you ask out of panic, when you ask while gripping tightly to a specific outcome, you're not really asking. You're negotiating. And the MONAD doesn't negotiate. It only responds to truth, the same way a mirror only reflects what's actually standing in front of it. This is uncomfortable to hear, I know, because most of our asking is tangled up in fear. We ask because we're scared of what happens if we don't get the answer. We ask because we've already decided what the answer should be, and we just want confirmation. That's not a real question anymore. That's a demand wearing a question's clothes, dressed up just enough to look humble. A naked question sounds different. It doesn't grip. It doesn't perform. It simply says, here is what I don't know, and I'm willing to actually hear whatever comes back, even if it's not what I expected, even if it's not what I wanted to hear at all. I'll tell you honestly, this is the hardest one for me personally. I want answers on my terms. I think most people do. But the moments I've gotten the clearest responses in my own life were never the moments I demanded clarity. They were the moments I finally let go of needing the answer to look a certain way, the moments I stopped negotiating and just asked. This is why Mary Magdalene's path is remembered as one of real depth, not performance. She wasn't reciting requests. She was standing in front of the source completely undefended, and that kind of honesty is rare, because it asks you to drop the armor most of us carry around without even noticing we're carrying it. Once your question is naked, stripped of fear and demand, you're finally ready to receive something back. But here's the twist. The answer almost never comes the way you expect. And that's exactly what the fourth way prepares you for. You've probably done this before without realizing it. You ask a question, and then you sit there waiting for a sentence to drop into your mind like a text message. Clear words, a clean answer. And when that doesn't happen, you assume nothing came through at all. That assumption is exactly what keeps so many people stuck. The fourth way Mary Magdalene used was listening in symbol, not sentence. The MONAD doesn't typically answer in words. It answers in image, in coincidence, in a sudden knowing that arrives without explanation, in a feeling that shifts the moment you ask, even if you can't immediately name why it shifted. Esoteric tradition holds this as a kind of symbolic literacy, an ancient skill of reading number, dream, and pattern instead of waiting only for language. Mary Magdalene is remembered as someone fluent in this kind of listening. She didn't expect a voice. She expected a shift, and she knew how to recognize one when it appeared, even in the smallest, quietest form. Here's where the archonic static shows up one more time, and this is important. Archonic interference wants you to dismiss anything that isn't loud and literal. It whispers, that's just a coincidence, that doesn't count, you're imagining things, you're reading too much into it. That voice of dismissal is the static trying to keep the line jammed, even after you've done everything right up to this point. So the practice here is this. After you ask your naked, felt question, stop expecting a sentence. Start noticing instead the number that keeps appearing, the stranger's comment that lands a little too perfectly, the sudden wave of calm that arrives from nowhere, right when you needed it most, the song that plays at exactly the right moment. These aren't random. They're the monad speaking in the only language that can move through the static cleanly, the language of symbol instead of words. I genuinely believe this is the skill most spiritual people are missing today. We've been trained by a world that only trusts loud, literal, easily explained answers. But the deepest contact has never worked that way. It moves quietly, almost too quietly to notice, unless you've already trained yourself to look, the way you start noticing a certain car model everywhere once you've actually owned one. And once you can read the symbols, once you stop waiting for a sentence and start trusting the shift, you're standing right at the edge of the deepest way of all. Because the fifth way isn't about asking or listening anymore. It's about becoming something else entirely. This is the one I told you to wait for. So slow down with me here, because this way is different from the first four. The first four ways are all about reaching toward the monad. Going quiet, feeling the question in your body, stripping it naked, listening in symbol. Each one moves you a little closer, like steps up towards something you've sensed your whole life but never quite touched. But the fifth way Mary Magdalene is remembered for isn't about reaching at all. It's about becoming so quiet, so aligned, so free of static, that you stop needing to receive an answer, because you've already become it. I know that might sound strange the first time you hear it. Let me explain it simply. Archonic noise needs something to grab onto. Fear, urgency, grasping. As long as part of you is anxious for the answer to arrive, there's still static for the interference to attach to. But when you reach a place of genuine stillness, when you've truly let go of needing the answer to come from outside you, the static has nothing left to hold on to. It just falls away, the way tension falls out of your shoulders once you finally realize you've been carrying it for no reason. And in that space, something remarkable happens. The line between asking and knowing disappears. You're not waiting for the monad to send something down to you anymore. You're resting in the same source the question came from in the first place. The answer was never actually separate from you. It only felt that way because the static made it feel distant, the way a familiar room feels foreign in total darkness, even though nothing in it has actually moved. This is the deepest layer of what esoteric tradition holds about Mary Magdalene's path. She isn't remembered as someone who simply got good answers. She's remembered as someone who became quiet enough that she stopped needing to ask in the desperate way most of us do. She rested in the source itself, and from that place, the answers were already there, waiting, the entire time, patient in a way fear never lets us be. I won't pretend this is easy. I'm not there most days myself. Most days I'm still negotiating, still gripping, still wrapping my questions in fear before I even notice I'm doing it. But I've felt it in small flashes, moments where a problem I'd been wrestling with for weeks simply dissolved, not because I solved it, but because I stopped gripping it so hard that I could finally see it clearly. That's a small taste of what this fifth way points toward, a glimpse of what's possible once the grasping finally loosens. This is why her teaching matters so much, especially now. We live in a world addicted to instant answers, loud certainty, quick fixes, 3-second videos promising transformation by Friday. But real contact with the monad was never going to come from grasping harder. It comes from finally, fully letting go, even when letting go feels like the hardest thing you've ever been asked to do. So here's where that leaves us. Silence before asking. Asking through the body. A question stripped naked of fear and demand. Listening in symbol instead of sentence. And finally, becoming quiet enough that you stop needing an answer from outside because you've already become it. 5 ways. Each one building on the last, the same way esoteric tradition holds that Mary Magdalene moved through them herself, layer by layer, past the static, all the way to clear contact with the monad. Not all at once, not in a single breakthrough afternoon. Layer by layer, the way most real things are built. I'll be honest with you, I didn't come to this teaching looking for something poetic. I came to it exhausted, tired of asking into silence and getting nothing back, wondering if the connection was even real, wondering if I'd somehow been left out of something everyone else seemed to understand. What changed for me wasn't a single moment of revelation. It was slowly learning that the silence was never empty. It was just full of static I hadn't learned to move through yet. I think that's true for you too, if you've made it this far in this video. You're not broken. You haven't been abandoned by the universe. You've just been asking the way most people were taught to ask, loud, fast, demanding, and wondering why nothing answers back. That's not a flaw in you. That's just a method nobody ever corrected. Try one of these 5 ways this week. Just one. Start with silence before asking, since that's the foundation everything else stands on. Sit quietly before you ask anything at all, and notice what shifts, even if it's small, even if it's nothing more than a slightly different quality to the air around you. The MONAD has never stopped speaking. You're just finally learning how to listen. What you have just received is the version this platform still lets me give you, the edited layer, the part they allow. This channel has been completely demonetized for getting too close to things that were never meant to surface this openly. That alone tells you how guarded this knowledge really is. I'm not backing off. I'm not softening what comes next. I'm going deeper. But I cannot carry this mission alone. I need your support to keep it alive. No sponsor will fund this. No algorithm will protect it. The only reason this transmission keeps going is people who felt something real here and chose to follow it further. If that's you, click the link in the description and join me on Patreon. The moment you step through that door, you're in a different layer of this work. Unfiltered, esoteric member-only videos, exclusive audio transmissions, and the deeper material that will never reach this platform at all. Most people will sense the signal and let the noise of everyday life drown it out. Not you.